And now let's go on the ground in Uttar Pradesh. The phase 1 polling that is all set to conclude in a while. My colleague Paulumi Saha getting you all the latest. Paulumi, over to you for the big day.
Thank you, Pooja. Thank you. We're coming to you live now from Mathura. Polling has come to a close here in western Uttar Pradesh, which went to polls in the first phase of the very crucial Uttar Pradesh Assembly elections. Polling started this morning at 7 a.m., 6 p.m. It is now when polling comes to a close. So, in fact, the fate of 623 candidates has been sealed right now in those ballot boxes at the polling stations behind me. It's a wrap on phase 1 of voting in Uttar Pradesh. The first phase of polling saw Jat and Muslim-dominated Western UP region, and the Doab cast its vote. Voting took place, in fact, across 58 seats, spread across 11 districts. Over 623 candidates were in the fray. Voter turnout as of 4 p.m. was nearly 48.24%. The Western UP belt, in fact, is key for all parties that are in the fray. The BJP big guns like Amit Shah, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, JP Nadda and Prime Minister Modi campaigned extensively in Western Uttar Pradesh for the Bharatiya Janata Party, and so did, of course, Akhilesh Yadav and Jain Chaudhary, who forged an alliance ahead of these elections. The Congress, of course, is banking on the women votes, and Mayawati is desperately, of course, trying to make a comeback. In 2017, in fact, the BJP dominated the 58 seats in phase 1 with 46% votes. In fact, it had 153 out of 58 seats at that point of time in 2017. BSP at that time was a distant second with 22% votes, followed by the Samajwadi Party with 21 votes. In fact, out of these 58 seats, the Samajwadi Party had won only 2 at that point of time. BJP and Alliance swept 53, like I said, out of 58 seats, whereas the Samajwadi Party and allies won 3 seats, and BSP won a meager 2 seats. 2 seats for the BSP, then 2 for the Samajwadi Party and 1 for the RLD, and 53 out of 58 seats for the Bharatiya Janata Party.
यूपी का मुद्दा सिर्फ एक ही है कि किस पार्टी ने सुशासन दिया है, और ये हम सबको कहते आ रहे हैं कि इससे पहले के जो 5 साल थे, बीजेपी ने भी 5 साल पूरे किए, उससे पहले के जो 5 साल थे उसके बीच में और अब के बीच में फर्क देख ली। आज गाजियाबाद के अंदर भूमाफिया नहीं है, आज गाजियाबाद के अंदर सुरक्षा है, आज गाजियाबाद के अंदर लोग बाग जो विकास चाहते थे उस राह के ऊपर विकास चला हुआ है।
My colleague Ashutosh Mishra is now joining me live from Noida on this. Ashutosh, polling has finally come to a close in these very crucial assembly elections. The first phase of these elections, all those votes have been cast and sealed in the ballot boxes. What sort of polling did Noida witness today, Ashutosh, because you've been travelling in the region?
Good evening, Paulumi. Of course, all the candidates and their fate have been sealed by the voters in the first phase. And indeed, after the very high decibel campaign, we have seen kind of, and of course, the expectations from the voters that was expected, particularly in the urban pockets like Noida, Greater Noida, in this part, that is somewhere has brought a sense of disappointment, because morning when I reached here at 6 o'clock, the polling was scheduled at 7. There was huge rush, and till 8:30 there was really huge rush, long queues of the semi-cosmopolitan cities like Noida and urban voters in a huge number. But later, after 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., 5 p.m., the crowd gradually reduced, and the number, the percentage that was expected to turn out of the polling booth, that was quite disappointing. Subsequently, we have seen the polling in the rural pockets be including the same part. At the moment where I'm standing, Dadri, the gates have been closed, the polling has almost completed. Now the EVM is being sealed in, that will be further processed. Now, in Dadri, particular Dadri assembly segment, urban voter, there I saw really poor voting percentage, but gradually in the remote areas, in the rural belt, there have been high turnout of the voters, and particularly this will set a momentum for the next phases. Now you'll see that within couple of hours, both the stakeholders, looking at the bipolar contest between the SP and the BJP, SP RLD alliance and the BJP, the both will claim that first phase have gone to them, because clearly if you concede defeat at this stage, this will demoralize your cadre, this will demoralize your momentum further. That will dent your momentum. So, it may not take even a couple of hours that everyone will claim that first moment has gone to them. But clearly, there have been more voting in the remote areas, in the rural belt. And as far as our pocket is concerned, the polling percentage has been quite disappointing. Follow me.
Okay, so urban pockets, the polling percentage has been disappointing, as has been the case across many urban centers. But a lot of polling, as you say, in the remote and the rural parts, and that is going to be very crucial as far as these contestants in the fray are concerned, because they're going to be number crunching right now to see how much has been polled in their favor or not. In fact, on the eve of polling in the first phase of the Uttar Pradesh elections, Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath released a video making a vote appeal to the electorate, which was to cast its ballot in the first phase of the elections, and saying that they should in fact bring the BJP back to power if they did not want the state to become lawless. He hinted at the return of Gunda and Mafia Raj if opposition comes to power. He said that terrorists are threatening to come back to power this time. The UP Chief Minister, in his election day statement, in fact said that the voting rights should be used carefully or the state will turn into Kashmir, Kerala or Bengal. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi had hailed Yogi Adityanath's government for changing the security situation and the law and order situation in Uttar Pradesh. He in fact had said that there was a time in UP when goons could do anything they wanted. However, today they prefer to surrender. Meanwhile, Kerala Chief Minister hit back at Yogi Adityanath. He in fact said that if UP turns into Kerala, then it will enjoy the best education, health services, social welfare, living standards, and have a harmonious society. He also spoke about Mafia and Gunda Raj in the state of Uttar Pradesh. My colleague Milan is in fact joining me live from Kairana on this. Milan, we of course heard that appeal that the Chief Minister, the incumbent Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Mr. Yogi Adityanath, made on the eve of polling in Uttar Pradesh. In Kairana, we know the BJP's campaign in fact harped on the fact, reminding the people about the exodus. That is what Amit Shah also spoke about when he visited Kairana. What was the mood on the ground in Kairana today, as you of course toured the constituency and the region?
Well, Paulomi, in Kairana and Shamli district, the mood was eccentric to say the least, because we saw a lot of people come out right throughout the early hours of the morning, despite there being heavy fog across the districts of Shamli and Kairana. As far as evoking the Hindu exodus point in Kairana, we spoke to a lot of voters who said that's not the issue that people are looking at, but definitely development was one of the issues that people were voting for, as well as the other issues that people looked at were law and order, definitely safety of women, as well as the jobs and unemployment, the inflation. That was an important issue for a lot of voters in Kairana. It was an action-packed day because we got a lot of complaints from various polling booths, especially some polling booths where the voting was very slow because the EVM machines were not working properly, which were replaced by the Election Commission of India. We also had reports of mishandling at certain booths in the rural area of Kairana, where in Dundu Khera area there were people from the lower sections of society who were beaten and driven away from polling booth centers where they went to vote. This was in Dundu Khera. Of course, the Shamli police as well as the Election Commission was made aware of it. The SSP happened to be at the spot and happened to facilitate voting, but that seems to be a loss of at least 800 such votes in this particular area alone. So these were the incidences that the Samajwadi Party has also filed a complaint against to the Election Commission of India. But overall, Paulomi, Kairana seems to have a very tough fight because Naid Hassan, who's in jail, the sister was campaigning today, was talking and cast her vote today, Ikra, but Mriganka Singh also stands a chance because it's not just the consolidation of Jat Muslim votes, but also looking at other sections like Sainis as well as the Sikh vote from this particular area, and also the Gujar vote will be a decisive factor for Kairana. Paulomi.
Absolutely. We do talk about the Jat vote. We do talk about the Muslim vote as dominant votes, which both sides, of course, are eyeing. But at the end of the day, there are other factors as well that are at play, which cannot be discounted. Milan, thank you so much for joining us. In fact, speaking of Western Uttar Pradesh, because that's where the first phase of these very crucial and significant Uttar Pradesh Assembly elections have taken place today. Speaking of the significance of this region, now both the Bharatiya Janata Party and the SP RLD combined have been eyeing the Jat vote in this region, while the Samajwadi Party, of course, hoping that some of the farmer anger from the farm laws, that anger spills over and has an impact on the voting pattern of the electorate over here in Western Uttar Pradesh. The BJP hoping that the electorate remembers what happened in 2013 Muzaffarnagar. So who has the edge in Western Uttar Pradesh?
In the high-stakes UP Dangal, parties have pulled out all stops to woo one make or break region, Western Uttar Pradesh, which holds 136 of the 403 seats. Western UP is the state's richest and most developed region and could have a decisive say in who rules the state. In 2017, the BJP swept the Jat-dominated belt by winning 91% of the seats, a sharp rise from the 20 seats the party won in 2012 to 109. The Jat community constitutes nearly 18% of the region's population and are influential in 120 seats. Jats have voted in large numbers for the BJP in 2014, 2017 and 2019. 2013 riots in Muzaffarnagar broke the long-standing Jat-Muslim alliance in this part of UP and brought the Jats into the BJP fold for the first time in 2014. This election could also have been a clear victory for the BJP in Western UP. But the Saffron Party is nervous, especially after a year-long agitation over the three contentious farm laws, which also impacted the Western UP farmers along with Punjab. Lakhimpur Kheri showdown, where a union minister's son allegedly ran his vehicle over farmers, is also located in Western UP. From Amit Shah meeting the Jat leaders to even putting out an offer on the table to RLD chief Jayant Chaudhary, the BJP's bid to control damage is apparent. Farmers' issues in UP include delay in sugarcane payments to inflation and diesel prices. The BJP continues to highlight its law and order track record, welfare and mandir. The BJP's principal challenger is the Samajwadi Party, which tied up with the Rashtriya Lok Dal, a party that represents Jats. Akhilesh Yadav hopes to convert the Jat vote in its favour with this tie-up. The big X factor will be Mayawati. Her party is a strong contender in 20 seats with a large Dalit population. But while Mayawati's caste, Jatavs, had rallied behind her in the 2017 polls, non-Jatav Dalits have been shifting to the BJP over the last 7 years. Will the BSP vote share shrink further? A lot depends on that. The do or die multi-corner fight could throw some surprises. Bureau Report, India Today.
And today, in fact, Prime Minister Modi and Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath campaigned in Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh. Prime Minister addressing a physical rally after a long gap of course, virtually campaigning for the Bharatiya Janata Party in the Uttar Pradesh elections. He launched a blistering attack on the Samajwadi Party and Akhilesh Yadav at the rally. Modi, in fact, said that the previous governments never saw beyond their families. The Prime Minister further sharpened his attack by saying that if the previous governments were in power during the pandemic, vaccines would have been sold off elsewhere and would never have reached the people. Modi also said that if someone makes big promises, they are usually empty and irresponsible promises. SP Chief Akhilesh Yadav hit back, saying that the Samajwadi Party and the RLD are not concerned over the UP ke ladke tag and that they will continue to fight for the state's development.
ये जो गौर परिवारवादी लोग सरकार में होते तो शायद वैक्सीन रास्ते में ही कहीं बिक जाती और आप कोरोना से भय से आतंकित होकर के जीवन मृत्यु की लड़ाई लड़ने के लिए मजबूर हो जाते।
जयंत चौधरी जी, चौधरी चंद सिंह जी की और यहाँ की किसानों की विरासत को आगे ले जा रहे हैं। यहाँ का किसान बदलाव चाहता है। यहाँ का किसान अपमानित हुआ है। ये चाहे दो लड़के कहें, लेकिन अगर आप देखेंगे समाजवादी पार्टी और आरएलडी दोनों के दोनों किसानों की लड़ाई आज से नहीं, जब से दल बने तब से लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं। किसानों की लड़ाई के लिए, किसानों के सम्मान के लिए, नौजवान के रोजगार नौकरी के लिए और उत्तर प्रदेश की खुशहाली के लिए हम दोनों लोग साथ आए हैं।
And we've got some breaking news that's coming in right now. RLD Chief Jayant Chaudhary has been unable to cast his vote as he couldn't make it on time. Remember, 6 p.m. is when polling closed for the first phase of the Uttar Pradesh Assembly elections. Jayant Chaudhary was in Bijnor campaigning today. Earlier today, he had said that he wouldn't be able to cast his vote. His wife, Charu Chaudhary, did cast her vote here in Mathura, where I'm standing right now. In fact, I'm outside the polling booth where Jayant Chaudhary was expected to come. He was going to try and make it, is what he told us. He was going to try and see if he could still come all the way down to Mathura from Bijnor and cast his vote. That, of course, did not happen. He did not make it in time. Rahul Srivastav is joining us right now, our National Affairs editor. Rahul, what sort of a message does this send out? Because the Bharatiya Janata Party says that this just tells the electorate that the RLD chief is not very serious about winning these elections, or he's already possibly given up.
Political parties on occasions such as this always want to make a mountain out of very small elements. Campaigning, when it is a 7-phase elections, there have been moments in the past where several leaders have not been able to cast their vote in their constituency. But the fact is that when a Neta goes to a polling booth to cast his own vote early in the morning is political messaging. Now, what kind of messaging that when he goes early, he goes and gets to see what kind of polling booths are there, what kind of intizam is there. Also, it galvanizes the supporters that my Neta is going to cast his vote. It also puts some kind of a sends across a message to the voters and the supporters. Say, for example, if Jayant Chaudhary had gone early in the morning, then TV channels would have interviewed him. The message would have flashed across on television channels. And that would have spurred a lot of his supporters to come out if they were feeling hesitant to come out and vote. So, in fact, I will say that Jayant Chaudhary himself has missed a political opportunity. I think then instead of being a constitutional or a moral or any other political issue, it's largely Jayant Chaudhary as a political leader has missed out an opportunity to perhaps get a little few more votes. Remember that in this area, nearly 30 seats were decided with over 20% margin, and rest of the all 23 were less than that. In fact, there are 11 odd seats which were decided with a margin of less than 10%. In an election where each seat matters,
absolutely,
each vote counts, I think a Neta should be utilizing the opportunity to vote. So instead of being a large crime committed kind of a thing which is being talked about by political opponents, the fact is I think it is Jayant who missed a trick.
Absolutely. Jayant Chaudhary, who missed a trick, he missed a political opportunity because each vote will count when, of course, they're counted on March 10th. Rahul, thank you so much for joining us with your perspective on that.